Please welcome to the stage Miss Sherilyn Fenn. Wow. We're gonna wing it. There's a microphone right there that you can use, and yeah. So we're gonna let this run about an hour, and we're gonna take questions really early on. But first, welcome to Philadelphia.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Is that kind of a shock? You hadn't actually seen the room yet. Is this?
No, it's excellent. I'm always happy to be with Sacred Family. And Sacred Family, some of you may or may not know, it's a lot of people don't get David's, and if you do, you get it, you love it. You're Sacred Family. Unlike my mother. She's not a fan.
You were just telling me about your children. Have they been exposed to any of your Lynch work yet?
I have a 24-year-old and an 11-year-old. They're just unimpressed. Your kids are sort of unimpressed. When I got one of those pop dolls, what's it called? Okay, that's the most impressed my 11-year-old was. It's like, oh, that's amazing, Mom.
So I thought we would actually begin tonight covering your non-Twin Peaks work, and we would ease into that, because I know there's a lot of people here who've already talked to me about somewhat obscure work that you've done.
Cool.
Yeah, so does anyone right off the bat have any questions about anything that's unrelated to David Lynch's work? Please, right in the front.
What was it like to date fake Humphrey Bogart?
Oh my, that was so strange.
The question was, what was it like to date fake Humphrey Bogart?
Yeah, so it was green screened, and I'm forgetting the gentleman's name. But he was trying a new process. You know, the odd thing is that I got married the day before, and I guess I just really thought I had to do it. So I was like in a car, ran over there. It was weird because it was a green screen, so you're just kind of, winging it to the best of your ability. But it turned out kind of cool. Yeah, thanks.
Was anyone else right off the bat have anything that's non-Twin Peaks related? My mother-in-law is here tonight because she is a huge Shameless fan.
Yay!
I had to mention that. Oh, they're
Hi.
Embarrassing. No, I'm just... Okay. All right. My wife and I the other night watched... did you want to say something?
No, I think she had a question.
Yeah, what was it like to work with the Shameless family? Were you like a real tight family?
I mean, they're really... Okay, first, my disclaimer is I'm really honest. So I get into trouble and I don't lie. It's just not me. The cool thing was I'd lost my mind and tried to find myself from the outside in and bleached my hair again, but then got the role. It was great. The kids were amazing. Bill's a little grumpy at times. And Emmy is just not a very kind person. God bless her. Not, whatever your deal is, babe. I don't have to live with you. See you later. I don't play that. When I'm working, I'm happy to be with everybody. If they start something with me, then I'll protect myself, but there was no reason for some of this stuff that came to me that I didn't even know, except that the makeup artist had literally worked with me on my very first show when I was 18. So she was really protective of me. And something happened, and I was blaming myself, and she said, I have to tell you what really happened. She was fucking with you. She was trying to make you mess up. And then she went to another actress and said, ha, I made her mess up. It's like, like, wow. See, I want my coworkers to do really well. I want them to be the best that they can be. Usually, open-hearted actors are better not on their close-up. When the camera's on them, they're not so good. And then the other person's close-up, you're like, shit, I was so much better, because you care. And that just was not my experience. But again, her problem, not mine.
We'll get to that, Tony. We'll get to. I actually did see you in something recently that was interesting. That new the Teen Titans show.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
Is anyone familiar with this? So you played the mother of the superhero named Raven.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
And I want them to bring me back because she steals her as a baby and takes her to a convent and tries to save her. And so we'll see what happens. This one, we have matching moles. Isn't that funny? I'm like, hey.
First thing she said to me when we met.
It was so, I'm like, hey. He's like, uh-huh.
The mole, the merrier. This is a fun Q&A.
I feel like I should sit up more. Can y'all see? Are y'all cool? You can't, right? I'm going to sit up here, boy.
Cool. Okay.
As long as this chair doesn't fall. Will it fall?
It is IKEA, so it.
Will you be my support? Thank you so much.
Security West, everybody.
Yay! This seems not fair.
So yeah, did anybody have any other kind of non-Lynch questions? There's such a huge body of work. Please.
Prince is one of the most amazing people I've ever known in my life. I met him when I was 17. Amazingly spiritual. He taught me a work ethic. He led me away from people would say, oh, change your voice, and he'd say, don't you dare, be who you are. And my favorite thing he said to me, because I really wanted to do Under the Cherry Moon with him and was like taking blonde pictures, and he said, Sherilyn, he called me Sherry because that's how he met me, and he's a brat that way. He said, I could put you in a movie and make you a star, but I'm having too much fun watching you do it all by yourself. Prince is one of the most brilliant musicians we've ever had. And I found it really interesting that, when he was alive, people didn't realize it, and then why is that? Then he dies and everything is, and if you only know Purple Rain, then you don't know Prince. Because he's really amazingly spiritual and just a wonderful, wonderful person. I loved Gilmore Girls. Amy Sherman Palladino, the creator, is one of the brightest women I've ever met. I was doing another show at the time. I was doing Rude Awakening because she'd wanted me to come in initially for the mother. And so then I came in later when she was trying to do a spin-off with Milo. And I don't know if you saw that. It was 2 episodes. And she was trying to get Milo to go to Venice to find his mom and his father, but his crazy stepmom with short blonde hair. And the studio, in their ignorance, said, he's not strong enough to carry a show. So if you don't know, Milo has carried many, many shows since then and is now, a star of a wonderful show called This Is Us. But I had a great experience. And then she brought me back again when my hair was dark. And the studio didn't want her to, but she was like, she has dark hair, shut up, I'm doing it. But Lauren wasn't very nice. She would get, and she wasn't. But well, she'd be like this, hi, how are you? Huh? And then they'd go to costumes, and she'd go to the producers of costumes and say, I look too cute. And the costumer's my friend, she's like, oh, she thinks we're putting you in too cute of clothes. I was like, what planet am I living on?
Do we have one
Hollywood's a
right
weird place.
in the center of the balcony? Is there a question?
Oh, no, it's all right. I was taking a picture.
Oh, right here.
What was it like? I saw you in the movie Wish Upon. What was it like dying by getting your hair stuck in a garbage disposal?
I think it was literally at that moment I was like, I think I'm done being killed on film. It was also something they sprung on me once I was there, which is okay. It's just that, anyway, they attached this, and they're like pulling my hair. It was not fun. But I've been buried alive. I've been like, it's a weird job. Had my limbs removed, you know.
How about over here?
If you willing to talk about your experience with TM and how you ended up beginning your practice?
Yeah, one day I went to see David before we all knew that we were going to be coming back. And David's a bit of a shrink to all of us, and so I was like, oh, this and that, and crying, and he very gleefully said, Sherilyn Fenn, you're a mess, you know, and that's the best thing in the world for him, you know, he loves that because he sees beauty in that. You need TM, you know, so he hooked me up with his teacher, and I started doing it, and you know, it was good, and it doesn't do for me. It's like we all have different paths and different truths, and I'm completely more connected to Christ, and that's who I pray to, and that's who's completely changed my life in every way, and I believe has the hugest identity theft in the world. And I, you know, say to you all, look a little deeper. And it gets quiet. Did she mention Jesus Christ? Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. That's my truth, baby.
How about
My
over
life's
here?
never gotten better since those things happened in the last 2 years. Amazing.
That happens to coincide with new Twin Peaks. Did that play any sort of role, or?
It was after.
Gotcha. One more over here.
Do you have like a fun 80s anecdote that you could share, possibly on the set of like The Raid or just one of Brash's?
Just one of the guys.
Well, I don't know. Anecdotes, I'm not great at. Just one of the guys, Joyce Heiser, was the cutest girl boy ever. Okay, I was like, she's so cute. She'd be like, Sherilyn, back off, you know. But she was precious. And the Wraith was crazy because Charlie was still being Charlie, and they would leave and get drunk and come back and couldn't say lines, and then they'd blame it on me because I'm green and new, and I'd be like, I know my lines. He's too drunk to say his. You know, what is going on? So it was weird. Yeah, they like moved the camera to show my breast. They weren't supposed to. I don't have great anecdotes for them. Sorry. But I'm, you know, it makes me happy that, you know, a lot of the older films, someone told me early on, if your work stands the test of time, if people remember it, that's the best gift you can have. And I feel like a lot of people that saw those movies, I'll always be like, oh, you grew up with me, you know, we went through that together, because you saw them and I was doing them, and yeah, just try to have gratitude for everything.
Well, let's talk about the topic at hand. This is a David Lynch-themed celebration. Let's talk about original Twin Peaks.
Okay.
Do you remember the original casting, getting involved in the show, your perception of the show that had yet to be filmed?
Yeah, it's kind of really cool because I was very young, and I had just met a manager. She invited me to her Christmas party. There was a lot of big stars there, so I was nervous and everything. And the next day she called me and talked to me, and she said, look, I think that when you're around people, you think you have to be who they want you to be. And I want to encourage you to just be yourself. And what that means is if you're kind of like a jokester, be that. If you're, you know, obnoxious bitch, be that. If you're shy, which I was, be that. Don't try to like jump through hoops to be something other, because the good directors can feel authenticity and they'll want to work with you if they see you, not, and they can't see you if you're wearing masks trying to, you know, be somebody else. Cut to my next meeting is with David Lynch. So I'm like, oh shoot. You know, I read the script. David doesn't audition people. David looks at pictures, gets a vibe, and decides whether, you know, he like intuits it. Yes, no, no, yes. So he brought me in. I think I was there like most of the girls my age for Donna or Shelley. I was kind of quiet. It was hard because I had that impulse to try to be, so how are you? Blah, blah, blah. But I let myself be myself, and I told them, well, everyone's sleeping with everyone. Like I told them what I felt, because let me tell you, Twin Peaks on the paper is totally different than Twin Peaks directed by David Lynch. If you read the script, you'd be like, and then David does it, and I don't even know what happens. You know, it's like magic happens, and. So the casting director called later that day and yelled at my agent, said I should have been more positive, et cetera, et cetera. A week later, he called and said, I've written her a role. So Audrey Horne was never in the pilot. She was never anywhere. And the coolest thing, how does somebody meet with you for 15 minutes and go, whoosh, and then write that? Now, he did steal a lot of stuff, because he did, because I would say things and then they'd be in the script. I'm like, David, I said that. Well, yes, you did, Sherilyn Fenn, and it works for Audrey. Like, okay. And I would wear a lot of my own clothes because the girls had these huge sweaters, and because I didn't matter. So, you know what I mean? If there's A, B, C, I'm like, Audrey, she's going to come and go and whatever. So I get to wear things I wanted to, a lot of my own stuff. And then I got the first script after the pilot, and I'm like, oh, I have scenes. Like, I have scenes. Because in the pilot, I'm in it here, I'm in it. I mean, there's very, very little. But he just can see inside people. And that's quite a talent. I don't know. I oftentimes see the wrong thing. I'm like, oh, wrong about that one. But yeah, so that was a pretty amazing thing that he writes a role for me that changes my life, basically.
And what's your take on the development of Audrey throughout the first and then the second season?
Well, I don't like the second season. I mean, I love David, but David wasn't there as much, and I think we got lost a lot. And David never does something weird for the sake of being weird. David has very soul-based reasons for the things that he explores. And when you have, you know, the costumer going, oh, I have 20 hula costumes. I'm like, yeah, you might as well put those away. It's not going to happen, you know. But the first season was it was magical. We were all there. He was there all the time. And a really cool turn happened that, again, see, there's never an accident for David. An accident is a gift. He's not like so egotistical that he has to control everything. He believes in the magic and sees beauty where other people don't. So the first season, Kyle was supposed to go meet Joan Chen and fall in love with her. And then he got to the hotel and something happened with him and Audrey. Now, I didn't have an attraction to Kyle, but Audrey did. Okay, big time. I don't know what happened there. It just happened. And so yeah, there's all these scenes, and then it got really good, and then his actual girlfriend Laura got mad, and so then happened. It happened. I couldn't believe it. So we have a dinner, and he's like, Sherilyn Fenn, are you in? He always calls me Sherilyn Fenn. I'm not Sherilyn. Sherilyn Fenn. Sherilyn Fenn, are you in love with Kyle? I'm like, ew, no, not at all. I mean, I think he's a really nice guy, but that is not what's happening. But Audrey is. I mean, there's something going on there. And they said they're going to change it. I'm like, you're going to change it because Laura's mad? Oh, God, okay. Is this how it works on TV? I don't know, you know. So, and then Kyle is saying, oh, it's because her character's too young. And then, So they brought Heather Graham, who's like 8 years younger than me. Makes perfect sense.
You did get to work with Billy Zane in the second season.
I know, but he wasn't Kyle. I wasn't happy. He came to the set the first day, and he looked like Jim Morrison. He had big, thick striped pants on and a conch belt. I'm like, where are you going? We're like, they're going to put you in a big sweater, and I'm not sure what. And I love him. He's a very nice person, but it was weird. I didn't get what was going on. It was like a weird and at a certain point he said, what would you say if I leaned over and kissed you? I'd say, well, you'd be in trouble because I don't want you to kiss me. See, I get in trouble. I don't care. I'd rather be honest.
What was your take on the finale of season 2 when everything ends in the bank for you? What was your take on that?
I called David immediately upset. He said, of course we're not going to kill Audrey. It's just the stupid network wants a cliffhanger. So, to me it summed up. An executive said something so smart. He said, David and Mark went fishing for barracuda and they caught jaws. They weren't prepared. They didn't want to stay in television. I think to this day, David's a little bit frustrated that when he didn't really, do you know what I mean? It was just a thing, became so big that it confuses him that something that he felt should be so big wasn't. But that's just sort of the grace of God. That's how that works. We don't really get to decide. But one of my favorite stories is how they discovered Bob the Killer. Do you know it? So you all know it, right? Okay, so some don't. This is the coolest thing. So they're doing they're doing a scene. I think at Donna's house or Laura's. I can't remember, but oftentimes the set people or props people will just sit behind so that they can, in between takes, refill cups and just get everything back to how it was in the beginning of the scene. And so they were looking at dailies, and they said, "Oh shit, David, we can't use it because look in the mirror, you can see Frank, our props guy, right?" And he was just sitting there, and he's like, "That's Killer Bob! It's Killer Bob!" So, and poor Frank, like a weekday, he was like, what am I doing? He's like the nicest guy in the world. And now he's Killer Bob. But the message to me was so clear. It's like he doesn't have the ego. He that's a gift, That was something he didn't expect. That's so cool. Or somebody be like, well, what the fuck were you doing behind that thing? You know what I mean? It's a gift, and that's like the spiritual kind of place that sometimes he exists in, which is really neat.
I don't know. I actually don't know the story behind this. Why weren't you involved in the film that followed the second series, The Fire Walk With Me?
Oh, you know what? There's a couple of things. First of all, between season 1 and season 2, David and my agent and his agent, David, me, his agent, my agent sat. He's like, we're going to do a movie. It's going to be called Mulholland Drive. Audrey goes to Hollywood, and you're going to get it. And I was just like, I'm so young. I'm like, do people do that on TV to movies? So, I didn't know what was happening. And obviously it didn't end up happening until years later with someone else, which is fine. But what happened? Oh, I got Of Mice and Men. Sorry. I screen test. I got Of Mice and Men with John Malkovich and Gary Sinise. I felt so legitimized as an actress. I was so, and I got saved a little bit too, I think. I do. I mean, my friend, I won't watch that movie because of what Sheryl Lee was put through during the making of that. And God only knows what Audrey would have had to go through. And he screamed at me on the phone about it. And I'm like, I've signed a contract. I'm cast. I don't know what to say. But he goes, well, we can't replace you. And I'm like, well, good. You can replace Laura, but you can't replace Audrey. And I only said that because I knew that they were replacing her. And they were, It's karma. She was mean. She messed up my storyline. Comes back. Hey, Hey, we're accountable for our actions here. That's how I think. It's today, tomorrow, a month, a year. It comes back. Be careful what you do to other people.
So, over the course of the 25 years between season 2 and 3, were you frequently asked about the future of Twin Peaks and if there would be a future?
Occasionally. I just didn't. Jennifer Lynch, his daughter, is a really good friend of mine, and occasionally, I know, right? She's great. I would ask, "Did you think?" And she'd be like, "Never. He'll never do it." And I'm like, "Okay." And then it was so funny. My first, what happened to me was I went into a chiropractor's office. And I went to sign my name, and it said Mark Frost. I'm like, no way, it can't be Mark Frost. I'm like, no, there's a million Mark Frost, and blah, blah, blah. And then he walks out. I'm like, Mark! And we're like, ah, crying and hugging and whatever. And, just thanking him again for, having kind of changed my life, changed my career. I hadn't seen him for so many years. And then when he left, the chiropractor's like, they're working on Twin Peaks. I'm not supposed to tell you. I'm like, no way! He's like, don't tell him I told you he's been working with David for like weeks now. So, but I know, right? Now I could get him in trouble, but then it still didn't come around for like another year. And then there was, I think, social media stuff, or a friend called me and was like, it says this. And so I just immediately called David and said, I'm not going to believe this unless, you tell me. And a little bit later, I was sitting in a restaurant, and then he called and said it, and I made a complete ass out of myself. I screamed and ran out of the restaurant because in my mind, I would do Twin Peaks and live happily ever after. And Audrey would be in every scene. No, not really, but she'd be in every episode. And I did. That's what I wanted. That's what I thought. I mean, I didn't go in thinking, but she became popular from you all. You liked her, and something happened, and I thought, she'll be in the scenes, and, it'll be so great. And Sherilyn and I went and had coffee with them, and we're talking about it, and I told him, so I get to be in every episode, and he's like, he gets all quiet, and he's like, and Cheryl had gone to the bathroom, and she comes back, he says, Sherilyn Fenn thinks she gets to be in every scene, or she should be in every episode. And Cheryl's like, well, she should. I mean, like, why wouldn't you? So he's like, they're both against me. And clearly David had a completely different idea, which is his prerogative. I mean, he's the man, right? He gets to decide all of that.
So when you got the scripts for your scenes, they weren't full episode scripts or anything? They were just limited to your role in the new series?
Yeah, so Kyle's probably the only one who got a full script. And it's ridiculous. So the casting person who I've known for so many years calls, and she cast the original in Joanna Ray, and she's like, oh, hello, Sherilyn, how are you? I'm like, good, what's up? Well, you could hear something bad's coming. Well, David wanted me to call you and see if you would just sign the contract saying that you're going to be on the show. And I'm like, well, what am I doing on the show? What am I being paid on the show? What is this? I don't, like, why? It's, like, not the way you do the business. You know what I mean? Like, ever. And I said, and then it made me a little bit angry, and so I said, no, he doesn't get to do that. I want to read what he wants me to do before I say yes, or, I mean, ultimately I would have said yes, but I wanted to read it. I just thought that I found that to be very disrespectful. And, and part of it was because, back up, David announces he's going to do 9 episodes. He has the support, blah, 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 he's going to do it. Then he realizes, no, I want to do 18. So you go to Showtime, instead of this much, we're doubling it. And Showtime was upset. They didn't want to do it. And then Kyle and Mark were talking about doing it without him. So I wrangled up some of, and that's where those tapes came out. I don't know if you saw them, Twin Peaks without David Lynch is blah, blah, blah. And I said, there's no way. I said, I'm not going to do it. Are you? And so we band together. And because of that, and because of the fans speaking out, he got to do twice as many shows. You know, he got to do what he wanted. So I just felt like to come to me that way, it just was really disrespectful. It was just like, you know, so then they called for me to have my meeting with David, and it was unfortunately the very same day, the night before my oldest son had moved out, and we were fighting, so I was really emotional. And he's just sitting there on this blank desk. And I'm like, oh, Lord. So I was like, hey, you know, what's up? I'm just not feeling great. My son moved out, and he's like, okay, well, Sherilyn Fenn, here's the pages, and, you know, you have to go read them in the other room, and you have to leave them there, like we're curing cancer. No, we're not. Okay, you know, so you have to leave them here, and this and that. I'm like, fine. So I go and read them, and they were pretty awful. And if you read the dossier, did you read that? Okay. So I didn't read the whole thing, but that's where that bullshit storyline was, where basically I have a hair salon. And a son who's really abusive, and it's like, where's Audrey's spirit? Like, why wouldn't she kick his ass or like not put? I just didn't get any of it. And most importantly, I couldn't believe that there wasn't one moment with Dale Cooper, like one. I said, like drive past each other. Oh, Sherilyn Fenn, you had a dream. I said, no, David Lynch, your fans have a dream. You know, this is not me. And then I was so upset that I couldn't talk. I'm like, I'm really upset. Like whispering, I have to go. I can't do this. And I left. And I got the meanest email I've ever gotten in my life. You reacted your way out of a show. Now I have to rewrite it. Blah, 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 blah. And I think that if you look closely, that's the scenes I did. If you can read between the lines, somebody is very angry at me. He is. He's pissed. But to his credit, we did all the scenes. And then at the end, Sherilyn Fenn, come over here. We have to talk. Like, okay, we sit, we have a cigarette. I don't even smoke, but I smoke with David. Yeah, we smoke, you know. And he said, you were right. You were right. I'm sorry. The scenes were great. I'm glad we rewrote it, you know. And I was like, oh, I never wanted to be the lead. You know, and he's like, I said you're right. It's fine. It's fine, you know. But I just wanted to be understood because it was a real big misrepresentation about what I wanted. And then he said, because I'd give him all these ideas. Can I be doing this? Can I be a deaf mute who's just dancing around? I mean, flooding him with ideas before I got the hairdresser idea. And then he said, now we're going to take off all your makeup and you're going to just, because we're going to do what you wanted. Well, you're going crazy. And I'm like, yes. So, but I didn't even know it. So it was go, wipe, do the shot, finished, you know. So, yeah, it's quite a trip working with David Lynch.
I will say that your performance in those scenes it's Audrey. It's the Audrey that I know. Although a bit agitated, you really got back into that character. Do you agree?
It's weird because, you know, you think of yourself 25 years later, when somebody, again, knows you for 15 minutes and writes something for you, that you get nomination, nobody forget, and like people love the character, it always shocks me. It was, I mean, I don't know. It was kind of a surprise. I lost my train of thought. Ask me that question one more time.
I felt that Audrey did officially return, that you were back in that character.
Yeah, but she was an Audrey who had been hurt a lot, as many of us are 25 years later in our life. Now here I'm shooting it not knowing I've been raped, I have a son. I'm like, I didn't know any of that, and maybe it's better that I didn't. In my answer, because people often ask, and David wouldn't answer this because he doesn't give answers, because he believes that everybody's unique experience of it is right. He's not going to tell you, no, that's wrong, this is what I meant. He'll say, what did it mean to you? Then that's what it meant. And I felt that she was, because she'd been hurt, she just retreated and was coming sort of in and out of, she was becoming almost psychic. Like she was talking about things that were really happening and then things that we had no idea. What the hell is she talking about? You know, and I kept hoping later she could help Dale Cooper solve crimes because now she's intuiting things, but you know, whatever.
So I'm going to ask this on behalf of the crowd because I'm sure this will come up. Can you talk about the real relationship between you and Charlie?
Audrey, I am so sleepy.
There's a little girl down the lane.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Clark Middleton.
I work for the... I actually, I'm just, it's my job, and I've got to go back to work. I'm the flower delivery guy. So.
Thank you so much. You're such a
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Yay!
Can I join this party?
Yes.
I was standing backstage listening, and thanks for warming up the crowd.
I couldn't resist this reunion, everybody. This is this is something special.
He called me about 2 months ago, and I said, my agent called me and told me about this, and he said, will you go down for the night? And I said, well, call him back and ask him how much Sherilyn Fenn is getting. Get me in the ballpark.
Well, it was crazy for us because at least I was never told what our relationship was. I think you were. He won't even look. He won't tell me. He's like, you know, I didn't know exactly what our relationship was. I think I found out later you were like my... Am I supposed to say it?
Yeah, he said, you know, I mean, we were running the scene like you run it once for David and then you run it for the crew. And so we got about halfway through the first scene and David came up and said, stop. He said, that's gee whiz, golly gee whiz. That's really wonderful in a normal kind of way, but I don't like normal. And then he whispered something in my ear, and I said, oh my God, that's wonderful. It changed the whole scene for me, and so, and then he got back and looked at it on the camera, and he goes, Charlie, don't ever tell anybody I told you.
But I think I know what he said.
And so we ran about, you know, maybe 2 seconds of it, and he said, that's it, that's what I want. But it's just this brilliant little thing he whispered in my ear. And that's what I love about great directors is they only say one simple little thing. They don't over chat it, you know, so. But I ain't telling.
Except they over chat when I'm supposed to like choke him and I don't want to hurt anybody. And I'm like, and he's like, you're not choking. I'm like, I'm not. And then he brings me over and he's choking. I'm like, and I don't play that. So I can't, right? Every time I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm so, you know.
Yeah, and I just said, choke me more, choke me more.
No! It was awful. It was awful.
You haven't met my wife. We do this every night. Only with whips and chains. No, I'm teasing.
All right, so we have about 15 minutes for audience questions. Anything goes. Please just raise your hand. We'll get to as many as we can. In the back.
I have a question for Mark.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's not about the beats, it's about Blacklist. I loved your character on Blacklist.
Thank you.
What was it like working with James Spader? Because I'm a huge James Spader fan.
Well, since this is about Twin Peaks, I'm going to keep this really brief. I love working with James, and James is he's just OCD meticulous, and he tends to kind of have his hands all over everything, and he'll say, I was just telling somebody else about it. He'll say, that would work better if you use your left hand on the pencil and do that. So the first day I worked with him, 5 years ago, I said, oh, okay, he's that kind of actor. And I said, James, it would be much better if you didn't say that line as you kept walking and you stopped, took a beat and said it. And, I guess everybody's afraid to say stuff to him like that. So anyway, he got that was the way we would roll. And we've been friends and had a great time working ever since.
Excellent.
So thanks for asking.
Excellent.
Please, right there.
Mr. Sherilyn, is Lizanne's hair real?
I think you know the answer to that. God bless him. Not that it matters, but I think when you're young, it's yeah.
Right here, sir.
Sherilyn, I'd like to know your thoughts on boxing Helena.
I was ecstatic to do it. I mean, actually, when I read it, I threw it across the room, and I got really, really angry and afraid. And then I knew I had to do it, because it was pushing all these buttons in me. And I met Jennifer, and that a woman can have that kind of understanding at 19 years old. And she explained what she was trying to do and how damaging obsessive relationships can be, and that she wanted to illustrate it on the outside without there being there's no blood in the movie, none. But psychologically, people, it was crazy. The reaction was just so, somebody from a very big reviewer, I think New York Times or something, said that she shouldn't be alive, called her misogynistic and all these things, and we're like, did you see the movie? Yeah, but I loved it. I was extremely challenged by it. I thought it was a very bizarre, beautiful fairy tale. I wish Ed Harris had stayed on board. And he wanted to, but when he met me, he said the problem is that then it becomes an older man obsessing over a younger woman, and then it changes your film, Jennifer, because that's not, you want them to be closer in age, other than that cliche, oh, he just wants her because she's young. But I really love doing it, and I love Jennifer Lynch. She's a brilliant, brilliant writer, director.
Right there.
For Clark, what was it like becoming like a David Lynch player, and how has that kind of affected your career post doing Twin Peaks season 3?
Well, yeah, it certainly did affect my career, but there's I had a body of work before, so it's just another step. But
Can I interject? An amazing body of work. An amazing body of work that we were lucky that you came to play with us for a few days. I don't know that David added, he's the man. He's a great actor.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. Seriously. Yes. So I love working with great directors, and David was like top of my list, and I always wanted to work with David. And I called my agent and I said, I hear they're doing a new Twin Peaks. And I love the old one, and I always thought that's a world I think I could really live in. Can you nose around and see what's going on? And he called me the next day, and the first thing I said to him, I said, did you call the David Lynch people? And he said, no, I was getting ready to, and they called me.
You're so intuitive. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. He said that David liked your work, and he really is interested, and he asked if you would put something on tape where you're just sitting around chatting with your friends and tell a story. Just tell a story. And I told him, so I've had that happen a couple of times before, and usually I've thought that's when people are maybe writing for you a little bit. Are they kind of looking for your rhythms? I don't know, but anyway, the interesting thing was, and so I sit down and I told this wild, crazy story about a time that me and a friend of mine took a car accidentally off the road in Southern Virginia on the North Carolina border, and almost went under a semi, but instead went down this embankment. It winds up being a very funny story. And a cop showed up. Finally, we'd busted out the window. We were fine. We'd gone down this huge embankment. We were just so happy to be alive, and this cop came down and he said, I just kind of want to go home. And I've been responding to these calls all night because of the rain. And he gave us his card, and we're in the middle of nowhere, and I said, listen, can you, I'm just going to tell you exactly what he said. I said, can you please tell me where the nearest gas station is? I've got to take a piss, pardon my language. No, I said, I need to take a leak. Oh, anyway, he said, 1 or 2. No, wait, I didn't tell him that. I said, I got to go to the bathroom. He said, 1 or 2, and I said, 1. He said, well, dude, there's a bush right there, man. I'm going over there to take a piss myself. Won't you come along? Won't you come along? So I'm standing there pissing with this cop, And it's pouring rain, and then the window is out of the no back window, pouring rain. And I say, well, I better get a motel and turn this car over tomorrow and get a new car because I had insurance on it. And so I asked him where that town was. He said, where are you going? I said, the mountains of North Carolina. And he said, how far is it? I said, well, it's about another 4.5 hour drive. He goes, drive it in the rain. I would. So we drove it all down to the mountains of North Carolina. The next morning I turned it in, and the guy said, that's the stupidest cop I've ever heard of in my life. But anyway, that's the story, and I sent that tape. A couple months later, I was in L.A. doing something else, and I got a call, and they said, hey, my agent called and said, hey, David Lynch, they're making an offer for the new Twin Peaks, and said the guy's on his way over to give you a script right now. So I got just the scenes with us.
Of course.
And I'm flipping through it, and I'm reading it, and I go, damn, this is with Audrey. I like that. Ooh, boy, I like that. So, yeah, and, I had about a month before I was going to start shooting, so I went back to New York and got under the hood of it because, David's stuff is very enigmatic, and, I thought at first, what the hell's going on here? And then I thought, well, screw it, fuck it, I'll just make it up.
Make it up.
I'll make it up. And so I just got underneath it and made everything up, but I loved the writing, the syntax, moment by moment by moment. It was so rich, so you could just fill it up. So it was a great experience.
Yeah.
Loved it.
It was
Loved
a great
it.
experience.
All right, we got time for a couple more. First, way over there.
If there's no ever more Twin Peaks, what would you guys like to see for your characters?
If there's ever more Twin Peaks, what would they like to see for their characters?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, I want to think I eternally wanting to have some more scenes with Dale Cooper, and to think that she's coming in and out of this consciousness, right? Some things are real, some things aren't, and that maybe she can help him solve a crime. And you?
And the crime is mine.
Upper balcony, please.
Just wondering about you two when you got the scenes. Like, did you get to work on it a lot? Did you get to like you were playing the scenes together? Like, how much time did you spend together with the scripts?
2 minutes.
Yep. We had tried, we had talked about getting together, and then you get consumed in life and kids and whatever, and we just dove in.
You were amazing.
Oh, thank you so much.
Well, I think that's often, as Sherilyn well knows, that's often the way you work in film and television. And you just do a lot of homework. And, I met Sherilyn when we shot the scene in the bar. And
That's right, that was our first scene in the bar. Yeah.
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 And then we had a month after that. And so, I knew she was going to do her own work and I was going to do my own. And then we show up and do it. And like I said earlier, it's just we ran through the first scene for 5 minutes. And then I got the note from David. And I think he may have given Sherilyn a note. I don't remember. But we ran it about 2 minutes. And then we shot it. And I don't know. I think the same was for you. I really only did 2 masters and 2 close-ups in that first
It was a
big
long scene, especially the first one.
It was a long
Wasn't
scene.
It long?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
As I'm just berating you.
I think that David, yeah, and I loved it. Psychosexual warfare underneath the language.
Right in the center of the room.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, what do you remember about the scene in Wild at Heart when you're off the road and
David came up and said, so I'm doing this movie, and there's this horrible car accident, and there's a car flipped over, and there's suitcases everywhere, and then out from over this hill comes this broken china bloody doll, and it's you, and you're gonna die within 3 minutes. And I'm like, okay. Come to find out, it was an actual story that happened to David's daughter's very good friend Lori, that she came upon that. And it was like really abstract direction, more blood. Sherilyn Fenn, where is your wallet? Your your head is itching. Where's the wallet? Bobby pin, action. But I mean, how do you play the last in that situation? Do you know what I mean? You've been hurt, you don't really know what, and you're trying to, so it was a lot of blood. So much blood.
A couple more, right up front.
For both of you, I know you guys only got the insight of what was here on the script, but as fans of the show, how do you interpret the ending, and what do you do?
I don't. No, I'm serious. I have my own point of view about it, and I get letters and messages and people on the street all the time that are always asking for an explanation, and I say, I what do you think it is? And they say, well, I think it's such and such, and I said, that's okay, that's great. Then they say, well, what do you think? Am I right? And I go, well, I think something different, but is that what you were playing? I can't say that. I mean, but I think it's the beautiful thing about David. I don't really want to tell anybody what I was doing or anything of what David told me, and I don't even know what David was thinking. But I love that because I think movies, TV, the great stuff, movies, TV, and theater. It's a two-way game. It's us and the audience, but the audience has to actively participate. And so David's making the audience work. Use your imagination. So whatever you think it is, That's my point of view. I don't know. I heard you say
No,
something about it
is-
earlier.
No, it is completely in sync with what David. Anybody that asks him what it means, he says, "What do you think it means?" Understanding is overrated. He's telling his truth, and whatever it inspires in every individual, nobody's wrong. It just and then it just maybe. I feel it makes us look at something about ourselves. Gosh, I wonder how it is that I received it that way and they received it this way. And that is the best art. You know, somebody sees something, and you all get a different, experience from it. And that's okay. But we're in this world where 1 + 1 = 2 and we want all the answers. But an answer can change, it can evolve, it can grow, and the biggest question is, how deep are you willing to go into your heart or your psyche to see what it brought up in you? He just doesn't want you to have a non-reaction. If you love it, great. If you hate it, great. Whatever you think it meant is it makes him happy, and he would never say it means this. It's the same thing about finding killer bot. No, it can't be because it has to be this. No, I mean, they did it not knowing who they were going to have the killer be. So that's like a really trippy way to live and to work, where you don't have to have control over everything like some tyrant or something.
And it's really great respect for the audience. I remember I worked with the actor and more importantly the playwright several times, Sam Shepard. And and another great artist I loved working with. But one time we were doing, me and Ethan Hawke and Arliss Howard were doing a new Sam Shepard play, the New York premiere of it. And we had just wonderful fun doing this play. But there was a class from the University of Georgia coming up it was a class that just studied Sam Shepard. So we called Sam and said, "Hey, Sam, when people ask us what the play's about, what do you want us to say?" And he goes, "Tell them to talk about it is to take the piss out of it." So that's what I always think.
Do we have one final question that kind of sums up the night? Is anyone that confident? All right. Please.
How do you feel about Dougie Jones?
We might have one more after this one.
Good idea.
I just want Special Agent Dale Cooper. Federal Bureau of Investigation Special Agent Dale Cooper.
How about back center?
Yeah, so as fans and filmgoers and viewers, we have this idea, touching on what you just said a little while ago, about David Lynch and his process. We feel like his process is probably way different than all other directors. If that's true, and if it is, like, what's different about when David directs versus other people he's worked with?
For me, other people will over-direct, and they will almost sometimes won't let the actor act. They have such a specific idea of what it is that they don't allow magic to happen, that unplanned things to happen, or a fine director will go into it and go, "Oh my gosh, I never thought of it like that. That's fantastic," and it's like jazz. A great director is like jazz. It can go in different directions. The other thing, it's like this. And I've literally had directors try to mess with my performance, and I just be like, okay. And I had a great teacher, and he worked with many people, but he worked also with Robert Downey Jr. And so Robert loves to tell the story that the director would come up, or if you're working with a bad director, and he comes up and he starts giving you direction, you go, okay, got it, and go back to doing whatever the fuck you were doing. Because sometimes they don't know what they're doing. And then they're like, "Oh yeah, that was great."
Yes, what Sherilyn said was really, really an interesting thing because, I just worked on Iceman Cometh on Broadway. We just finished a couple months ago that George C. Wolfe directed. And I really wanted to do it because I always wanted to work with George. Great cast. Denzel Washington played Hickey. But I discovered... I discovered why. I sound very name dropping, but forgive me. I discovered why George was so extraordinary. It's because he was discovering the play as he went. Through what he was telling us, which was incredible. His insight was amazing. And then we would get instincts from that, and he would get instincts from our instincts. And, we were 2 weeks into previews, and we'd already done 15 performances in front of an audience, and they call us in early for the afternoon rehearsal. And he says, I've eliminated the back wall in the third act. I saw something last night that made me realize we don't need the back wall. Now, the great set designer, Santa LaQuasta, was sitting behind George going. And so they took it out. And then that night I realized why he did it. Because the people that the main point of focus was on, when they were talking, the person before that was leaving, you were seeing them walk away. So you're being affected by them, and that's informing what's happening on stage. But it's just that, I don't know, like Sherilyn was talking about, I love directors that discover it with you, or they say, God, I never thought of that. So it's that kind of openness of the process, don't you think?
100%. I mean, it's a collaborative medium, and one thing that I'm always impressed, well, many things, but one of the things with David was he can get an idea from craft service. He can get an idea. He doesn't pay above the line, below the line. You have something more. Everybody has a story. Everybody has value, and I had a teacher that said, they said, what makes a star? And he'd be like, the willingness to expose your heart and your soul, to be filmed being totally lost the way we are in life and not going cut, so I can try to control it again, but just finding your way back the way you do in life. And you find that those become the most magical moments. It's like you can be like, oh, that was a great scene, and then it sucks. And then something that you thought you didn't know what you were doing, and then people say it's great. And like example, Audrey's dancing scene in the second episode was written that day, 5 minutes before we shot it. So I called my coach, oh my God, he's rewritten a scene, I'm supposed to dance. I'm freaking out. He's like, it's David Lynch, just listen to him. I'm like, fine. So he's like, you're gonna do this, we're gonna talk about this, and then you're gonna go over there and dance. With who? By yourself. Why? Because you're gonna dance. And if you look closely, my hands are shaking a little bit. Like but that made it more vulnerable, and that made people be more drawn to it in a funny way than if it's like, I know what I'm doing, I mean, really, because it was a weird thing that happened, and again, totally being honest, later episodes, some of the girls tried to do what they thought Audrey was doing, but that was never what she was doing. So they're dancing and licking things, and it's like that. I never did that. We don't work on that. That wasn't what it was about. So it's really just going deep and having the courage to learn something, while you're doing it about yourself. And if you're really good, you always walk away going, oh man, I could have done this, or what if I did that? Or, you know what I mean? It doesn't just die there. It keeps
Absolutely.
growing.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's, to me, that is absolutely what you just said, what it's all about, because it's bottomless. It never ends. And so it's always important for me to keep the process open. In Iceman, we did 95 performances, and I committed, I said to myself, I'm not going to stop discovering as I go. And then, a week later after we closed, I was in the shower thinking, God, I have this idea and this idea, but that's when you're working really well, because nothing should ever be finished. Mm-hmm. That's the way I look at it. So you give it everything you've got, but there's still more to discover. It's just never finished.
I mean, we grow until we take our last breath. You make the choice. Patterns are prisons. They'll lock you in. You will die in your pattern. So you go a different way home, do a different thing, try something you're afraid of, and it just it changes your life. It makes life much more exciting and much more worthwhile. Otherwise, you feel like a Barbie. And now I'm gonna do this, and then I'm going. It doesn't matter what anybody else does. I'm gonna do this, and it's like you can hit them in the head, and they're gonna do this, and it's like it's what happens between there and there. You know, whether they're connected or whether they're totally not connected, but that's the magic, is relationship. And then that relationship then extends to relationship with you all. So don't, again, understanding's overrated. It's just who you are and what touched you and why it did. And then you get to learn more about yourself, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's such a great, amazing thing she's saying. I mean, this is really, really important, because I always feel the scenes are happening right here in the middle. It's like you have to have this inner part of yourself that is reaching for that inner part of the other person. So it's that chemistry that is you're gonna dance, and it's just gonna be different every time you do it. But it's an alive process, and I think what hearing you even behind the door, Sherilyn, my favorite actors, and I think I kind of. I'm not trying to bang my drum, but I have a bit of this, and I think I depend on fear. I love fear, so I really want to go into a situation. That's one of the things about working with great directors, because they all have their own process, and I try to open myself to that process. But she was talking about I could when I was listening at the door, you were talking about being freaked out about something and going, well, where I'm at is where I'm at, and that's what I think really great actors do. They're willing to be there. They're willing to go there and almost thrive on fear, not get too comfortable. I think it's dangerous to get too comfortable as an actor. Young guy came up to me after Iceman Cometh. He said, I'm an actor from Canada. Can you tell me how to get over nerves in acting and in auditioning and stuff? And I said, what makes you think I've ever gotten over that, or I would ever want to get over it,
Exactly.
Because I kind of need that, so.
Well, when it means you care. And a funny thing happens. If you're really nervous, just let it go. And then another time, see when you're excited, it's the same feeling. It's the same feeling. So I just tell myself, you're excited and you care, and dive in and see what happens,
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because I think younger actors I talk to often, they want to get past those feelings of discomfort because they want to be comfortable. And I say, writers don't write about people that are comfortable. They write about people that are going through things. So find a way to think character thoughts instead of acting thoughts, and jump in and take that feeling and put it there, but.
Yeah, and that's another final thing. I mean, to people that are newer in acting, and my teacher used to say, it's some of the most important things are that you honestly know where you are. Oh my gosh, I'm fucked up about this. This is what's going on. This is, and oftentimes your work will parallel what's going on in your life. And he would say, in terms of because the script itself is not going to mean shit unless you have something to weave in there personal. Your imagination ain't that great. It's just not going to do it. The personal stuff, when an actor's making you cry, he's telling you something really personal weaved into this. So he used to say to me, you must have a more important reason to go to an audition than to get the job. He said it makes more personal, and you walk away with something. You looked at something in your life, and that's what. I mean, the word acting. It sounds faking and this and that, and that's not what good actors do.
That's absolutely true. When I teach acting, which I do and I love to do, I tell the students. I say they're talking about auditioning on camera, and I say you have to need to be in front of that camera. The need you find in that material has to be more important to you than the need to get the job, the need to be liked, and you have to go to those places. Because if you're in that place where it's like you're trying to figure out what they want, or you're desperate for the job, I mean, everybody likes a job, but you got to go much, much deeper than that. It's got to be more important to you than that. So
And that's what makes special work. I mean, that in any kind of art form, that's what's going to make
Absolutely.
it special.
I mean, it's interesting, like, I was looking at some paintings of Van Gogh's the other day, and I got up really close at the Met in New York, and then I went and looked at some Picassos, and then I looked at de Kooning, who I really like, and all these guys, and if you get up close to the canvas, you can see the spontaneity in it, and you can see the emotion, like of like Van Gogh, his passion and his strokes and stuff. And and I sat there and I looked at it and just started having this great experience with this painting. And I thought, what is it? Besides the fact that you love the painting. And I thought, what it is? I'm connecting to him. Because what he gave was so alive, or those painters in that moment, that it's alive now. So I think that's the key,
Absolutely.
Excellent. We will need to bring you guys back for an actor's workshop of some sort. You are. Ladies and gentlemen, Sherilyn Fenn, Clark Middleton.